computer. Boom. We are alive, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tio and the Arcane Bear. We have a wonderful guest for you today. In our search for all things valuable, well, generally trying to ignore most of the prices, we landed on Avalaunch. Now, we've been big fans of Avalaunch itself, and our ventures into adventure capital has led us into trying to research the things that are valuable before everybody else knows that they even exist. So we have Mark Stanwyck, the co-founder of Avalaunch. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, when I first started the idea, I wrote, just for kind of a fun background moment, I wrote adventure capital on my Twitter page like 3 years ago. I had no idea what venture capital was. I basically just thought it was like entrepreneurialism. But for
Yeah.
those of you that don't know, venture capital is generally looking at early seed stage or series A investments, usually by angel investors. But this whole crypto sector has opened up, I think, a very unique opportunity for let's say, the average individual to find these new projects and founders that are looking to change the world. So Avalaunch is a project that runs on top of Avalanche itself, that acts as a launch pad for these new venture capital ideas. So, Mark, do you want to drop in and tell us a little bit first off about yourself, and then we'll go, and then Avalaunch itself?
Yeah, sure. So I have been working in the crypto industry, let's call it, for a number of years, since 2016, 2017, around the time where Ethereum became very popular. And at that time, as a younger guy looking for his way through the world, right? It was like, for the first time, obvious to me that you could work in crypto and be in crypto and have a life in crypto. I was well aware of crypto many years before that, but it was just kind of like as a hobbyist, an investor, just sort of like on the peripheral. But then when this really kind of came more into the mainstream, at least at that time, it became clear to me that this is where I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to spend my time. This is like what turned my brain on, what made me happy, all that stuff. And so at that time, I was just finding my way through the space in any way that I could. Helping out around communities, managing communication, doing marketing, project management. Crypto is unique, and I think this is still true, in that there are so many ways to get involved and kind of carve your own path. You just have to, if you're just generally useful and helpful, like, you can actually make a difference in the impact of a project, and consequently a lot of people's lives. And that really excited me. Like, it was just no shortage of opportunity. Like, you just could wake up and get into it and start strategizing and find ways to contribute and help and benefit, personally, financially, etc. And that was always really exciting to me. And so, I just went, headlong at that point. Worked on a bunch of different projects, all different types of projects, very technical types of projects, more like entertainment, gaming types of projects, security projects. Just kind of finding my way through those opportunities and what I liked to do, and which kind of brings me to the current day. In front of this project, and ecosystem and technology that I really care about and believe in, and am trying to expose more people to. And this just feels like kind of the amalgamation of all those experiences, and kind of where I was supposed to be sort of all along, I think.
Yeah, it's such this whole idea of being able to offer, to a global audience, the opportunity of this sector has been one of the most amazing things. Like, when I first found Bitcoin, first off, I'm not super technically speaking. The only reason I've realized Avalanche itself is so valuable is because I have a friend who's smarter than I am, who's like, you should check this tech out. And he was right
Yeah,
about Chainlink. So I'm at a
yeah,
point now where it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to shut up and go, great, this looks like a good idea. But venture
yeah,
capital is something I can understand relatively easy, that there's this asymmetric upside to the potential of new startup companies. And when we're in this kind of growing, budding sector, the crypto space, there is a lot of risk, there's a lot of volatility, but the upside is extraordinarily high, or
yeah,
asymmetric. We don't even know how high it could be.
yeah.
And these launch pads have kind of jumped out as a really unique way for deal flow. We
Mhm.
saw the regulations in the United States around crowdfunding change, and that was a really exciting moment. for being able to own equity in a company that you would normally never have been able to get a seat at the table with. And
Yeah.
generally, these conversations were reserved for, oh, you have to be in Silicon Valley to know what type of, who's getting into the deal flow, to be able to cut a check, to get in and to get an allocation into some of these projects. Like there's no way you're getting private equity into Twitter. And what I love about these
Right.
launchpad ideas is that it opens up the contribution and the allocation to the community itself as well. And that the technical evolution surpasses those borders as well too, because a lot of the times, with seed invest or these other venture capital places, you have to be with the United States or some type of regulated jurisdiction. So for those of you that don't know, the Avalaunch team is, you guys have a bunch of the founding members and people that work at Avalanche kind of helping as advisors for what you guys are building too, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And so the kind of the idea there, the point there is, with Avalaunch, the whole goal is to bring attention to what's happening here. And the whole goal with working with those people is so we as a team can more easily identify, or at least get feedback on where the gaps might be, how we can add value, how we can help. The advisors we have are amazing, and they're incredibly hardworking, and they're so much more than I think a lot of typical crypto advisors. That being said, Avalaunch is not the official launchpad of Avalanche. We're not related or affiliated with Avalap. If there was another worthy sort of platform that was doing the same thing, I'm sure they would support them too, and I would want them to, and I want other people to come in and come and do what we're doing. I'm not necessarily worried about competition. I don't really see it quite like that. I think what we do and our angle's a little unique, and I think other people are going to come in and fill other kind of niches and other types of investors and satisfy those people too. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what that allows us to do is just kind of see the bigger picture more clearly, and I think be more efficient and effective in kind of seeing our goal through the end.
Yeah, the market's had a lot of froth lately. People are investing in Shiba Inu coins, and I think generally in the middle of the market cycle, people are attracted to this sector because there is this high potential return. When you guys are building, and you launched this week, correct? Like you guys are going live this week, is that correct?
No, so we listed our token on Pangolin, which is the Uniswap of Avalaunch, their native AMM, last Friday. And the platform should be going live next month. Yeah, we'll have some stuff kind of in the interim so people can start using the token, interacting with the token, earning the token, get people engaged, because ultimately, we earn allocations in the sale through the token. So we want people to have a good opportunity to not just purchase the token, but get involved in the community and earn it, and in preparation for those events.
Great. Mark, just to interrupt, maybe I want to get you to back away from the mic a little bit because it's clipping when it's super close.
Yeah, sure.
So no, it's actually probably just like the popping, the air, like the air directly leaving your mouth. Anyways, don't want to interrupt.
Okay.
Just so one of the things that's interesting here is that a lot of the times we're finding that you have to like lock in token allocation, or you have to buy an X amount of tokens to have a space for these allocations. Now that you guys are kind of going into the live mode, what types of projects have you had knock on the door looking for these launch pad, like a place to launch from?
Yeah. So there's a lot of teams. I would put those into two categories. So there's a lot of teams that have other projects that are frustrated with other ecosystems, other chains for one reason or another, and that are exploring Avalanche because it offers some benefits that would be very useful to their project in their future, right? So true scalable decentralization, cheaper fees, not dirt cheap, because you need to cost something, but cheaper, and and a fresh community, really. And so that's kind of one side of the coin. And then there's also this other piece of it that's really prevalent today, which I would characterize as the kind of native Avalanche community. And this is a community of people that are real builders, really excited, really passionate about the technology. That they're protective over it, and they want to do good things with it. And we're talking to a lot of these people that are early to Avalanche and early to the ecosystem and want to kind of make their mark in it, I would say, and bring in cool products like DeFi products, infrastructure type stuff, wallets, things like that, stuff that a new ecosystem really needs to grow and gain adoption. And that's what we're focused on in the short term, are the tools and applications that users need to kind of come into Avalanche and continue to grow the thing.
Yeah, it's such an important part. We're still so early in some of the building, and what's
Yeah.
even possible. Back in the day, I don't know if you remember, but Fork Delta, or Ether
Yeah,
Delta, the
too,
kind of the
of
first
course.
market
Yeah.
makers on Ethereum. These
Uh-huh.
new financial products and services are still always kind of like baffling to me. The automated market maker itself is such a great invention, or
Mhm.
CLOB, the central limit order book that Serum has come up with. We keep
Yeah.
seeing new innovations in the DeFi space itself. And I think, Avalanche is basically a whole step forward in terms of technology in comparison to what we have out there. And I think largely people overlook, or at least have at this current moment, undervalued the potential that's really there.
Yeah.
When one of the things I love about venture capital is knowing that some of these founders are going to go on to potentially change the way we do finance or share information.
Uh-huh.
um I'm assuming that part of the fun aspect here, like for me, part of the fun aspect is finding those people that are innovative enough and crazy enough to come up with an idea, and maybe even have to pivot along the way or quickly change their idea into what they're doing.
Yeah.
um, when you started to build Avalanche itself, what was the discussions like to try to bring some of the advisors from the Avalanche team on? Because I know that they're just kind of chocked full of more innovative thinkers, and there's this big gap generally between the people that are really good scientifically and then the people that are good at like scientific communicators. Like it's always this kind of gap between, well, here's this complex, like statistically significant data sheet that nobody wants to
Yeah.
read, but how do you pivot and explain it to the average person? That's what I kind of, it's why I'm so interested in this sector, is that intermediary between these difficult conversations. What was it like chatting with the Avalanche team about these?
Yeah. Yeah. So probably simpler than you think. And I think this is why is, early on, the whole position was, listen, we're gonna come and we're gonna build this, and we really believe in what you're doing. So let us help you. It doesn't have to be exclusive to us. It shouldn't be exclusive to us. We want to, like, it doesn't need to be for this to matter to us. We just want to help, like, raise awareness about what you guys are doing. So Ava Labs has always been really, really helpful and really responsive, and just really interested in helping good teams build. Like, I think one of the things that's I think unique about Avalanche and important these days is, it's a structured, large organization that's capable of, executing and delivering and supporting, multiple teams at once. And when you're competing at the layer one level, in today's market where cryptocurrency is today, like, you have to have that. You're not going to get away with not having the support around a layer one to get the adoption from developers and retail. You just have the marketing and onboarding. Like, this is a massive, massive undertaking. Like, it's hard to sort of wrap your head around. And they're great at what they do. So they were sort of ready to receive us and ready to receive ideas, and they're always looking for good, strong teams. Wanting to bring stuff over and develop things that kind of weren't possible before now with Avalanche. So what we found was this sort of kind of fertile ground for what we were doing, and they were just interested in helping. So it was a pretty easy sell, honestly. And in terms of the advisors that we have, this just came out of these people caring about what we were doing and interested in the conversations that we were having, to the point that they were like, well, okay, like, looks like you're serious about this, so let's just make sure that we stay on top of this and we can continue to help you. But again, it's not this exclusive thing. They probably do it for anyone. So it's a really inviting, welcoming kind of ecosystem to build on, and that is one of the things that I think is different about it is you start looking at some of these other chains and, you know, put conversations about technology aside and decentralization aside, is, you know, what does it look like as a developer to come to these chains and try and start building? Like, what kind of support are you going to get? How easy is it to understand what you need to do to get spun up? You know, what kind of encouragement are you going to get? I think all these things really matter, especially in today's like really competitive market. And Avalanche and Ava Labs was really strong in that area, and so it just kind of confirmed like, hey, you know, this is what we see from the outside is true.
Yeah, it's always one of these unique perspectives too, because we are in a fairly difficult technological space. Like I said, when my friend showed me Avalanche, like clearly I couldn't, you know, back in 2017 we could see that the DAG, or these directed acyclic graphs, would have a competency advantage over top, and there's always been kind of this argument about maximalism. And I think generally people get confused about, you know, well, we've got a monetary layer, and what about all these other potentials? That, you know, one of the things, again, I love about this venture capital sector is that wealth has been generated by businesses for time immemorial. It's not, you know, we've used different types of money, yet we've always had business. You know, we've used different types of currency, and we've always had business. These kind of new ways to provide value to the community. And, you know, we're in this new world of decentralization, especially the last 2 years. The world has gone extremely technologically focused due to the kind of forced changes in our regular social habits. You know, the scalability has always been one of the key points of conversation. In terms of, you know, I know you've got I think most of the chains are trying to start some type of launch pad, but, you know, a lot of people migrated to the Binance Smart Chain just because of the fees were cheaper. You know, is there anything else, technically speaking, that Avalaunch provides in terms of a launch pad in comparison with just cheaper fees?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the unique things about the Avalanche technology is in terms of, you know, validators and how this actually scales and how the network is actually secured. You know, this is something that other chains have issues with scaling. You know, number of validators. Like sometimes there's just a legitimate hard cap. Other times it doesn't realistically look like a distributed group of people can economically achieve, you know, the distribution that would be ideal. And this is a part of the Avalanche technology that I think is successful and is going to be improved. And so the way that the Launchpad is actually built is different in that it supports some of these validators in their efforts to secure the network. So with our sales, you know, there's rounds where you have to hold the token, and we can get into that later if you want. But one of the rounds is actually dedicated to the network validators. So if you're running a validator on the Avalanche network, like, you can participate in the sales. And, you know, we'll see how that goes. And, you know, if the validators actually take advantage of this, like, they have to care about what we're offering. But this is, again, it's just, you know, it's just the Avalanche community just looks a little different. It's much more, it's a very like close knit circle at this point. And these, and as a launch pad that's bringing new teams into this, we want to be able to say, you know, this is a launch pad that, you know, thinks about this stuff and this stuff's important to us.
Yeah, well, being able to reward the Avalanche validators itself, I think, is a great idea. And while we're here, yeah, let's talk about some of the token dynamics for staking and the launchpad allocations that might be coming next, and maybe even from there bridge into some of the projects that are looking to launch over the coming months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think this is kind of the real interesting part, at least as it pertains to Avalaunch, is because, you know, a lot of the ways that the launch pads are working these days is just not very attractive to average user, right? There are these kind of events that get kind of crazy, and no one gets into the sale, and maybe the site goes down, or you didn't get your lottery ticket, or, you know, you didn't reach the gold and silver tier, or, whatever the case may be. So, this is actually something that I just stopped participating in a long time ago because it just doesn't work like with my personality. Like I just don't like the feeling of what it actually looks like to participate in these kind of sales. And so when we were designing the product, we took a step back and really looked at what we wanted the experience to feel like, and considered that when a project comes and launches on Avalaunch, or at least fundraises through Avalaunch, a lot of their new community, this is where they start, so the experience should be good. And so what we're doing is guaranteed allocations, fair allocations. There's some mechanics inside of the platform that level the playing field between big players and smaller players. There are mechanics in place so a whale can't come in and just grab everything. We think the community and the market is ready for a more thoughtful, kind of measured process where you have confidence in what's happening, and that you'll be recognized, and you can get sort of your fair share. So our sales are broken up into 3 rounds. There's a community round, and this is where you hold the Zava token, and you come to our contracts and you stake the Zava token. And there's some stuff we're going to be releasing in the next few days about this, actually. But the gist of it is if you're a smaller guy, right? If you don't have the earning power to earn a max allocation, right? Because you have to cap it somewhere. You can probably, it's looking like, hang around in the contracts, and by virtue of how the system works, as other larger players are executing on the allocations that they've earned, because you don't have to necessarily exercise your allocation. You can be earning this token and working your way pretty quickly toward a maximum allocation for yourself just by hanging around in the contracts, earning tokens, and being a part of the community. And so fundamentally, it's very different than like how these other launchpad work, which is like, come hold a bunch of our token, and maybe you'll get an allocation that'll maybe hit a multiple and flip. And it's just kind of, it's a little icky, right? At least today. It's not something that we're interested in building. And so we have the advantage of kind of looking at these other launch pads and where they've gone wrong and what they've done right and what's worked. And, and there's some cooler stuff today for sure. But the idea that a launch pad is just, come swap your token and maybe you get in, like, that's not very exciting, and it doesn't really build a strong community. And it doesn't build people that are interested in the project long term. So there's a lot of our system design and features that are trying to incentivize the right things from an economic perspective, but also like a community behavior perspective. And listen, these are like big problems, and they're hard to solve. And this is going to be a process, and we don't expect to solve all of them. But things like account verification and Sybil resistance mechanisms, like these are huge problems in crypto. You know what I mean? And we're trying to acknowledge some of these in our platform. And there's people way smarter than us that are working on this stuff, and and have spent a long time working on it. Gitcoin is a good example of some of this stuff. If you look at them, the lengths at which they're going to try and solve some of these issues, like, it's a real problem. But at the end of the day, the one thing that's important for us to be able to say is we're really working toward making this more fair for everyone. And if you're, it's not a rich get richer kind of thing. It's not like, we can sort of come and scoop up all the allocation with our tokens. Like, it just wouldn't be possible within the platform. And so these issues have to be solved like at the platform level. This can't be with tokenomics, or because some whale could easily just come and buy $10 million of the token, and like, what do you do with that guy? You can't ban them, right? So you have to make sure that the system is able to accommodate that, and you're able to still say, hey, this is well, fair is an interesting word, but this resembles fair.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? I mean, we went back to the conversation about normally you had to be in the circle of no to have an allocation.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Gary V, and Gary V's like, my normal allocation size is $25,000. He's like, and I didn't cut a $25,000 check into Uber. And one of the fun things I like about this is that when people understand asymmetry, it doesn't even need to be a huge allocation. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, in our private research newsletter at our private group, I was a big fan of Matic for the last 2.5 years. And, $1,000 in Matic is worth almost $250,000 today. And there's these
Yeah.
astronomical upsides to these kind of early venture capital games where, a small allocation can go a long ways over the course of a few years if that company is actually successful in trying to pull off their vision. And that's one of the tricky parts, is like you're saying, okay, well, if you want someone that's might be leading the round at $10 million, how do you still make sure that there is a level of fairness for those smaller allocations to come in and enjoy this asymmetry early on? I think one of the other unique aspects is that back in the day, if you had invested a private equity into Uber, there's no liquidity right away. So here
Right.
you're given access to liquidity. Are you guys, what's the, I mean, vesting and token lockups are always an interesting conversation. One of the things I liked that TrustSwap did was have this kind of open vision board of whose allocations are locked and where they are and how long they're locked for, so that the distribution of these tokens is a bit more readily available. Are you guys
Yeah, it's very cool.
going down a pathway of like how do you offer that information at the front
Yeah.
end?
Yeah, so we'd like to be able to offer things like vesting schedules built within the platform. Right now we're a little more focused on the system design of how to make the actual sale more fair. So if the sale isn't fair itself, right? Like if you had to hold, let's just say, an inordinate amount of our token to get a $500 allocation or something like that, like I don't know, I'd rather fix that problem personally and work with the teams and say, hey, this would be a good way to distribute your token and, kind of vet at that level at this point, than the other way around, right? And have these, great dashboards, but really unfair sales. So it just, I think it's a developmental priority thing at this point. We have the luxury of working pretty closely with the teams that are trying to raise on Avalaunch and kind of give them guidance in terms of, what would look like a fair distribution, how to vest this stuff, making sure that through our due diligence process, this stuff is in order. And then, kind of making our area of expertise at this point, the sale and ensuring that it goes off and feels fair and is broadly distributed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even with Avalanche itself, you can see the distribution of large early accumulators in the last six months. Basically, every time there's a run up, they just throw a crap ton of Avalanche tokens on the market. And it's such an interesting question. In this kind of new social justice era of nonsense, how do you provide equality to some degree in terms of these weighted mechanisms? You're right, it's a difficult conversation. And you brought up Gitcoin too. I think these ideas behind like quadratic funding that you're talking about, you're very right. They're very complex conversations to know how to distribute correctly. I don't think people generally take that in super, again, it's probably more technical conversation. What kind of, maybe let's jump into some of the projects. How many projects are lined up to try to launch with you guys over the next few months? Like I'm sure there's quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of interest. There are 3 that are confirmed, and I can't announce them yet. But these are they kind of span like the spectrum of like cross chain, Avalanche native, and like the stuff somewhere in between. So originally we wanted to focus like exclusively on Avalanche native projects. Like that felt like thematically correct. But the reality is that Avalanche is still sort of early in this regard, and so there's a lot of great strong projects that are integrating with Avalanche and building part of their ecosystem on Avalanche, or maybe this is some kind of infrastructure piece that is servicing multiple ecosystems, and these are good strong teams, and I think that what we realized is that these things kind of need to come potentially first. But that being said, there's great Avalanche native projects that we're talking to that are very much in alignment with like the ethos that we have, that is supporting the Avalanche kind of specific culture, and tailoring to those people and dealing with those people in a way that's special and thoughtful. And we're talking to some of those projects now those are the ones I'm really excited about, because it was kind of like the really utopian vision of the thing that I had originally, about just like, the Avalanche party. So, unfortunately, just nothing I can be too specific about, but like it really varies. Big, strong cross-chain projects, and then maybe your more kind of niche Avalanche stuff that's going to be very, very cool, and that people will be very, very excited about, and probably have a lot of engaged users. Just very, very exciting stuff in general.
So this was kind of one of my next thoughts, is that, one of the reasons why things like Shiba Inu token with absolutely nothing behind it do so well is because of their marketing. With these open decentralized spaces, you're trying to also appeal to the user that doesn't necessarily have the technical understanding of the complexities that go along with, like, why, for just Avalanche itself is a great example. Like, why would you want to invest in the early stage of this company? Like, when it was around $2 to $3, I kept being like, Avalanche, ladies and gentlemen, like,
Yeah.
we're up to 10 or I think 30x from the private sales, but even a 10x within the first year is absolutely monstrous. And
Yeah.
how do you feel you can overcome some of these marketing conversations when hype sells? And again, I think it's this, maybe it's like a bit of that scientific communication. How do you feel you can overcome that?
Let's see. So is the question, how do you get people excited about more like honest kind of homespun efforts? Is that the question?
Yeah, I guess so. Sometimes it's a hard question to pose, because sometimes the most exciting things are actually kind of technically boring, and that's what makes them exciting. Like
Yeah,
Avalanche
yeah, yeah.
itself, right? The complexity of why it's something cool goes over my head. So
Right,
the
right,
only
right.
reason I could figure it out is because like I have a trusted tech team who's like, dude, this shit right here, like,
Yeah. Listen to those guys. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
so how do you
we don't.
separate yourself, I guess, to some degree?
Yeah, we don't all have a trusted tech team, I suppose. I think, again, this is specific to us. Is like, we are really invested and interested in kind of the story and the narrative and why this stuff matters. So from a communications marketing perspective, I think we do a pretty good job um, of painting that picture, of painting why these things matter. Not necessarily why they're different from a technology perspective, although we can do that too, but just why these things are impactful. I think we do a decent job, if you look at our mediums and our writing, at explaining things and offering a compelling message. And I just think that's actually a little different than most crypto marketing that you see out there. It's just pretty straightforward. And so we're a small team, and like, we all have personalities, and we all have a character, and I think this comes through in our marketing. And it's not going to resonate with everyone, but I think that it mostly resonates with people that are paying close attention. And these are the kind of people that we want to. These are the kind of investors, community that we want to be able to offer the project. So it's almost like self-selects a little bit in that way. So when I'm talking to a project, I can try and explain this to them, and if that's interesting to them, or that kind of turns them on, like, then they're probably like a good fit for the platform. But if it doesn't, and they're like, I do not care about what you're saying, then it might not be, like, you might be better suited somewhere else.
Yeah, I know this point from my own experience. I feel we provide a fairly high level of quality entertainment in the work that we do, and often it's almost like chess or football, right? Like, if you're trying to share a technical idea, you're going to attract a specific type of people. But at the
Yeah.
same point, you're like, you want to find out how to convince the people that just love football to understand, like, some of the technical genius that's taking place in these more strategic
Yeah.
games. So does the Avalaunch team itself work with the companies that are on the launch pad to help go through these conversations, or do you kind of just let them
Yeah.
run free on their own?
Yeah, it's a case by case thing, right? Because by the time we have a conversation, these projects could be in any given state of their evolution, right? They could be very, very early, where these conversations could actually end up making a big difference, or they could have been around for a year and a half already, and they're ready to go. So we can always offer our input. But I really like the idea and the opportunity that we have to have input early on, to whatever degree the team might want to incorporate it or not. It's unimportant. But it is kind of cool to say, hey, this is what we're seeing in the ecosystem. This has been our experience. This is what I recommend, and kind of have what we've learned about Avalanche translate into other projects coming to Avalanche, and kind of having that sort of that story, that that mark passed down kind of thing. Like there's like trends inside of Avalanche and things that people do, traditions and things like that that are forming that I think are just cool. Like airdropping the validators or including the validators. Like this is a theme that's become prevalent, and who knows how long that will stay around. But this is an example of what I'm talking about. It's just like a unique little community, and little it's that little, but it's just more like descriptive. So I don't know. I really appreciate those kinds of conversations. Although we're having talks with teams that are much larger, and kind of have their own way and are real value adds to Avalanche as a layer one, and yeah, those are awesome too.
So if myself or any of the Bear family want to take part in some of the upcoming Avalanche cases, what would we need to do? And
Yeah. So there are like public rounds where you don't need to hold a token or run a validator, but those will likely be a smaller percentage of the sale. So your odds of getting in there are lower. So if you wanted to participate in the community round, which is like the biggest share of the pie of the tokens that are up for offer, you would hold the Zeva token, hold our token, and come to our contracts and stake in the contracts, and earn your allocation. And like as long as you're staking, as long as you're participating, like you'll get something. And there's just not a lot of launch pads that can say that at this point. So it's just something that we like to be able to say, like, listen, come participate. You'll get something. Like it's just a cool thing to be able to put out there.
and what are the like the minimum or maximum kind of staking requirements for these community rounds?
Yeah, so there's no minimum, but there is a maximum allocation that you'll be able to earn, and that is dynamic and would change from sale to sale relative to what else is happening inside of the contracts, how many other people are staking, and how much demand there is for the sale. So that's something that's kind of calculated at the time. The way that it works currently is you come to the platform, you kind of register your interest, what you're able or willing to allocate for yourself, and then as the registration period is open and other people come and do the same, these numbers start to sort of work together and change, which by the end of this period and the sale begins, you'll have what is the max allocation relative to like what you chose as what you can afford. So it just works a little differently than most other platforms. And it's pretty cool because if you come in and you have a bunch of money and you want to sort of try and swoop everything up at the last minute, you just won't be able to do it. Additionally, if you're staking on our contracts and this sale isn't necessarily attractive to you, you can continue to stake, earn more Zeva. The people that did take the allocations, you'll be kind of able to earn off the back of their execution of that allocation. And these are just, these are mechanics that we'll kind of have to detail in a full post, but they're kind of neat. And again, they sort of redistribute things in a way that you don't normally see. And this is something that projects that we're talking to, like, it's kind of a nice change of pace, I think, from the way that it usually works.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I've had a great time chatting with you today. Is there you want to let the Bear family know how we can find you on links? So they'll be down in the description below, but it's always good to have it
Yeah.
auditorily.
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
'cause some people just
For
listen.
sure. I mean, we're, avalaunch.app. You can check out the website, and from there, you can find the Twitter, you can find the Telegram, which we are active on both. And that's really the best way to kind of get in touch and learn more. Also, the Medium, there's some good information there about what we're doing, and we always make sure to write a lot about that. So, yeah, there it is.
Awesome. So we would go here, go to avalaunch.app. You join the Telegram. You can check out their GitHub. Where's the
Down there
launch?
at the bottom is the Twitter, Medium, Telegram too.
Nice. Good look at the team here. Where's the launch button?
No launch button yet. Coming soon.
Okay, to be decided. Awesome. Is there a set date on that launch button already?
Nothing I can talk about right now. I can't commit to it right now.
Okay, great. Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. Bear family, if you
likewise.
like this content, which I know you do, give us the thumbs up. If you're new to this channel, definitely subscribe for high quality updates. I'm a big fan of venture capital. I think that the opportunity in this sector is definitely trying to find those early stage founders who have an idea that might be able to change the world, and helping support and promote those ideas. Mark, it's been great chatting with you today. I'm stoked to watch Avalaunch go through its process, and hopefully we'll have you back on again the show in the future here once you guys are already up and running.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Bear family, we will see you again on the next episode. This is Tea with the Arcane Bear.